The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Volume 5, Section 7, Writings. But a few centuries afterward, when the Turks and other Tatars races were converted into Buddhism and Mohammedanism, at that time they conquered the Hindus, Persians, and Arabs and brought all of them alike under their subjection. Of all the Mohammedan conquered of India, none of was an Arab or Persian. They were all Turks and Tartars. In Rajputana, all the Mohammedan invaders were called Turks, and that is true, and the history is fact or historical fact. The Charanas of Rajputana sang, the Charanas of Rajputana sang, Turu Bango Bodhi Jaur. The Turkish are very powerful, and that it was true. From Kutubuddin down to the Mughal emperors, all of them were Tatars. They are the same race to which the Tibetan belong, only they have become Mohammedan and changed their flat round faces by intermarrying with the Hindus and Parsians. They are the same ancient race of Asuras. Even today, they are reigning on the thrones of Kabul, Persia, Arabia, and Constantinople. And the Gandharis, Kandahar, natives of Kandahar, and Persians are still the slaves of Turks. The vast empire of China too is lying at the feet of the Manchurian Tartars. Only these Machus have not given up their religion, have not become Mohammedans. They are the disciple of Grand Lama. These Asuras never care of learning and cultivating of intellect. The only thing they understand is fighting. Very little of the warlike spirit is possible without a mixture of that blood. And it is that Tartar blood which is seen in the vigorous martial spirit of Northern Europe, especially in Russia, who have three-fourths of Tartar blood in their veins. The fight between the Devas and Asuras will continue yet for a long time to come. The Devas marry the Asura's girl and the Asuras snatch away Devas' brides. It is this that leads to the formation of powerful mongrel race. The Tatars seized and occupied the throne of the Arabian caliphs, took possession of Jerusalem, the great Christian place of pilgrimage, and other places, would not allow pilgrimage to visit the Holy Sepulchre, and killed many Christians. The head of the Christian churches grew mad with rage and rose their barbarian disciples throughout Europe, who in their return inflamed the kings and their subjects alike. Hordes of European barbarians rushed towards Asia Minor to deliver Jerusalem from the hands of the infidels to the infidels. A good portion of them cut one another's throat, others died of diseases, while the rest were killed by the Mohammedans. However, the blood was up to the wild barbarians, and no sooner had the Mohammedan killed them than they arrived in the fresh numbers. With that dogged obstinacy of the wild savage, they thought nothing even of plundering their own men and making meals of Mohammedans. When they found nothing better, it is well known that English King Richard had a liking for Mohammedan's flesh. Here the results was the same as usually happened in the war between barbarians and civilized men. Jerusalem and other places could not be conquered, but Europe began to be civilized. The English, French, German, and other savage nations who dressed themselves in hides and the order of Christians, hides and ate raw flesh came in contact with Asian civilization. An order of Christian soldiers of Italy and other countries correspond to our Nagas began to learn philosophy, and one of their sect, the Knight Templar, became confirmed Advait Vedantist and ended by holding Christianity up to the ridicule. Moreover, as they had amassed enormous riches, the king of Europe, at the order of the Pope, and under the pretext of saving religion, robbed and interminated them. On the other side, a tribe of Mohammedan called the Moors established a civilization kingdom in Spain, cultivated various branches of knowledge, and founded the first university in Europe. Students flocked from all parts, from Italy, France, and even from far off England. The sons of royal families came to learn manners, etiquette, civilization, and art of war. Houses, temples, edifices, and other architectural buildings began to be built after a new style. But the whole of the Europe was gradually transformed into a vast military camp, and this is even now the case. When the Mohammedans conquered any kingdom, their king kept a large part of him for himself, and the rest he distributed among the generals. This man did not pay any rent but had to supply the king with a certain number of soldiers in the time of need. Thus, the trouble of keeping a standing army always ready was avoided, and a powerful army was created which served only in the time of wars. Thus, same idea still existed to the certain extent of Rajputana, and it was brought into the West by Mohammedans. The European took this system from Mohammedans, but whereas with the Mohammedans there were the king and his group of feudatory chiefs and their armies, and the rest, the body of the people, were ordinary subjects who were left unmolested in times of war. In Europe, on the other hand, the kings and his groups of feudatory chiefs were on one side, and they turned all the subject people into their slaves. Everyone had to live under the shelter of military feudatory chief as his men, and then only was he allowed to live. He had to be always ready to fight at any time at the word of the command. What is the meaning of the progress of civilization? What is the meaning of the progress of civilization, which the European boast so much about? The meaning of it is the successful accomplishment of the desired object by the justification of wrong means, that is, by making the end justified the means. It makes act of thief, falsehood, and hanging appear proper under certain circumstances. It vindicates it is Stanley wiping off hungry Mohammedans guards who accomplished him, who were stealing a few mouthful of bread. It guides and justifies the well-known European ethics which says, "Get out from this place. I want to come in and possess it," the truth of which is borne out by the evidence of history, that wherever the Europeans have gone, there has followed the extinction of or aboriginal races. In London, this progress of civilization regards unfaithful in conjugal life, and in Paris, the ruining away of a man leaving his wife and children helpless and committed suicide as a mistake and not a crime. Now compare the first 3 centuries of the quick spread of the civilization of Islam with the corresponding period of Christianity. Christianity during its first 3 centuries was not even successful in making itself known to the world, and since the day when the sword of the Constantine made a place for it in his kingdom, what support has Christianity ever lent to the spread of civilization, either spiritual or secular? What reward did the Christian religion offer to the European Pandit who sought to prove for the first time that the earth is a revolving planet? What scientist has ever been held with approval and enthusiasm by the Christian church? Can the literature of the flock, Christian flock consistently meet the requirement of the legal jurisprudency, civil or crime, or by art and trade policies? Even now, the church does not sanction the diffusion of the profane literature. It is possible still for a man who has penetrated deep into the modern learning and science to be an absolute sincere Christian. In the New Testament, there is no covert or overt praise of any art and science. But there is scarcely any science or branch of art that is not sanctioned and held up for encouragement directly or indirectly. In Korean or in many passages of the Hadith, the traditional saying of Mohammedan, the greatest thinker of Europe, Voltaire, Darwin, Buchner, Flammarion, Victor Hugo, and a host of others like them, are the present time denounced by Christianity and are victims of the vituperative tongues of its Orthodox community. On the other hand, Islam regards such people to be the believer in the extinct of God, but only wanted in faith of in the Prophet. Let there be a searching investigation into the respective merit of the two religions as regard their helpfulness or throwing of obstacles in the path of progress, and it will be seen that wherever Islam has gone, there has preserved the aborigin aboriginal habitants aboriginal habitants. There those races still exist. There their language, their nationality abates even to the present day, where all the Christians present till abates even to the present day. Where can Christianity show such an activity or achievement? Where are today the Arabs of Spain and Aboriginal races of America? What treatment are the Christians according to the European Jews? With the single exception of charitable organization, no other line of work in Europe is in harmony with the teachings of Gospels. Whatever height of progress Europe has attained, every one of them has been gained by its revolts against Christianity, by its rising against the gospel. If Christianity had its old paramount sway in Europe today, it would have lightened the fire of inquest, inquisition, inquisition against such modern scientists as Pasteur and Koch, and burnt Darwin and others of his school at the stake. In modern Europe, Christianity and civilization are two different things. Civilization, civilization has now girded up her loins to destroy her old enemy Christianity, to overthrow the clergy, and to wring educational and charitable institution from their hands. But for the ignorance ridden justic masses, Christianity would never have been able for a moment to support its present despised existence and would have been pulled out by its root. For the urban poor are even now enemies of the Christian church. Now compare this with Islam. In the Mohammedan countries, all the ordinances are firmly established upon the Islamic religion, and its own preachers are greatly venerated by all the officials of the state, and teachers of other religions also are respected. The European civilization may be likened to a piece of cloth, of which these are the materials. Its loom is a vast temperate, hilly country on the seashore. Its cotton a strong wall-like mongrel race formed by the intermixture of various races. Its wrap is warfare in defense of one's self and one's religion. The one who wins the sword is great. One who wields the sword is great, and the one who cannot gives up his independence and lives under the protection of some warrior's sword. Its woof in commerce is commerce. Its woof is commerce. And the means of civilization is the sword. Its auxiliary, courage and strength. Its aim, enjoyment here and hereafter. And now, it is it with us. The Aryans are lovers of peace, cultivators of soil, and are quite happy and contented if they can only rear their families undisturbed. In such a life, they have ample leisures and therefore greater opportunities of being thoughtful and civilized. Our King Janaka tilled the soil with his own hands, and he was also the greatest of the knower of truth of his time. With us, rishis, munis, and yogis have been born from the very beginning. They have known from the first that the world is a chimera. Plunders and fights as you may, the enjoyment that you are seeking is only in peace and peace, in the renunciation of physical pleasure. Enjoyment lies only in physical development, but in the culture of the mind and the intellect. It was the knowers who reclaimed the jungles from our cultivation. Then over that cleared plots of land was built the Vedic altar. In the pure sky of Bharata uprose the sacred smoke of yajnas. In that air, breathing peace, the Vedic mantras echoed and re echoed, and cattle and other beasts gazed without any fear of danger. The place of the sword was assigned at the feet of learning and dharma. Its only work was to protect Dharma and save the lives of men and cattle. The hero was the protector of the weak in danger, the Kshatriyas. Ruling over the plug and the sword was Dharma, the protector of all. He is the king of kings. He is ever awakened, even while the world sleeps. Everyone was free under the protection of Dharma. And what your European pundits say about the Aryans swooping down from some foreign land, snatching away the lands of the aboriginals and settling in India by exterminating them. In all pure nonsense is all pure nonsense, foolish talk, strange that our Indian scholars too say amen to them. And all these monstrous lies are being taught to our boys. This is very bad indeed. I am an ignoramus myself. I do not pretend to any scholarship, but with the little that I understand, I strongly protest against this idea at the Paris Congress. I have been talking with the Indian and European savants on the subject and hope to raise many objections to this theory in detail when time permits. And this I say to you, to our Pandits also, you are learned men, hunt up your old books and scriptures, please, and draw your own conclusions. Whenever the European finds an opportunity, they intermediate the aborigines and settle down in ease and comfort on their land, and therefore they think the Aryans must have done the same. The Westerners would be considered wrestled vagabonds if they lived in their native homes, depending wholly on their own internal resources. And so they have to run wildly about the world seeking how they can feed upon the fat of the land of others by spoliation and slaughter. And therefore they conclude the Aryan must have done the same. But there is your proof. Guesswork, then keep your fanciful guesses to yourself. In what Ved, in what Sukta do you find that the Aryans came into India from foreign countries? Where do you get the idea that they slaughtered the wild abori, aborigines? Aborigines, what do you gain by talking such nonsense? Vain has been your studies of Ramayana Why manufacture a big fine story out of it? Well, what is Ramayana? The contest of savage aborigines of southern India by the Aryans. Indeed, Ramachandra is a civilized Aryan king, and with whom he fighting? He with the king Ravana of Lanka. Just read the Ramayana, and you will find that Ravana was rather more not less civilized than Ramachandra. The civilization of Lanka was rather higher and surely not lower than that of Ayodhya. And then when were this Vanaras, sorry, when were these Vanaras, that is monkeys, and other South Indian conquered? They were all, on the other hand, Ramachandra's friends and allies. Gay which say which kingdom Say which kingdoms of Vali and Guhaka were annexed by Ramachandra. It was quite possible, however, that in the few places there were occasional fights between Aryanas and the Aborigines. Quite possible that one or two cunning munis pretended to meditate with closed eyes before their sacrificial fire in the jungle of the Rakshasas, waiting, however, all the time to see when the Rakshasas would throw stones and pieces of the bones at them. No sooner had this been done than they would go winning to the kings, the mail-clad kings armed with sword and weapon. A steel would come on fiery steed, but how long could the aborigines fight with their sticks and stones? So they were killed or chased away, and the kings returned to their capital. Well, all this may have been, but how does this proves that their land were taken away by the Aryans? Where the Ramayana do you find that? Where in Ramayana do you find that? The loom of the fabric of Aryan civilization is a vast, warm, level country interspersed with broad navigative rivers. The cotton of this cloth is composed of highly civilized, semi-civilized, and barbarian tribes, mostly Aryans. Its vrep is Varnashramacharya, and its woof, the conquest of strife and the competition in nature. And may I ask you, Europeans, what country you have ever raised to better conditions? Wherever you have found weaker races, you have exterminated them by the roots, as it were. You have settled on their lands and they are gone forever. What is the history of your America, your Australia and New Zealand, your Pacific Islands and South Africa? Where are those aboriginal races? Where are those aboriginal races there today? They are all exterminated. You have killed them outright as if they were wild beasts. It is only where you have not the power to do so, and there only that other nations are still alive. But India has never done that. The Aryans were kind and generous, and in their hearts, which were large and unbounded as an ocean, and in their brains gifted with superhuman genius, and all this epher- ephemeral and apparently pleasant but virtually beastly processes never found a place. And I ask you, fools of my own country, would there have been this institute of Varnashrama if the Aryans had exterminated the aborigines in order to settle on their lands? The object of peoples of Europe is to exterminate all in order to live themselves. The aim of Aryan is to raise all to their own level now, even in the higher level than themselves. The means of European civilization is sword. Of Aryan, the division into different varnas. This system of division into different varnas is the stepping stone of civilization, making one's size higher and higher in proportion to one's learning and culture. In Europe, it is everywhere victory to strong and death to the weak. In the land of Bharata, every social rule is for the protection of the weak. In the land of Bharata, every social rule is for the protection of the weak. Translated from Bengali.